So this is a fairly common question here, where somebody has wants to choose between two different price values, for a stop loss, or maybe even a profit target. Obviously, most of the time it's for a stop loss here. And so this is a pretty classic example here, question that comes up, where they want to set their stop loss at either 4 ATRs or the nearest pivot point, or the nearest swing point, whichever is closer to where the market currently is at, right? Now, BlackBird doesn't have the ability to choose between two different initial prices. So you have to pick one, and as the initial price, you have to pick one, and then with the trailing actions, we can then allow the trailing actions to decide, which of the two, price points is closer to where the market's at. Right? So, so let's actually dive into BlackBird here and take a look. Although first let's get a swing point indicator on the chart. So we have a visual element here. So I'm going to use the swing highs and lows, as this swing point indicator. And let's see, I'm going to knock the number of swings down to 2. Yeah, I'll knock it down to 2. Actually, you know what? For this question, I'm going to leave it at 4. There. Leave it at 4. That way, leaving it at 4, basically, the swing points that are identified are going to be further away. So, like for example, right, the swing low was down here, but now it just recently moved up, to this point, just moved a little higher there. So, all right, so if we're taking a long trade, the stop loss will either be at this swing low or 4 ATRs, from wherever the entry price was, right? So, and it's pretty clear from this example, for a 4 ATR stop loss would be a lot closer, to where the market's at versus this swing low, way down here. So, all right, so now we got the indicator. Let's get BlackBird open, and let's visualize what I said about BlackBird. With BlackBird, you have to pick one price point to start off with, and then you can use the trailing actions to decide or to move the stop loss closer. Right? So first thing I need to do is pick my entry price, and I'm just going to use a market entry because the question is really about setting up a stop loss here. So, and I'm going to start with a custom. So we'll start from scratch here. So normally, I would probably just start with the ATR one, and then modify it. But we'll take this from scratch, completely from scratch here. So picking custom to start off with. Now, with all orders, so in other words, with stop losses and profit targets and like limit or stop entries, obviously a market, you can't set a price for a market order. But if the entry was a limit or a stop, right, there is this initial placement, right? And that, as the name implies, this picks the initial price at which the order will be placed at. So, right, so in the initial placement, right, you can only pick one price, or you can only, define one price point, right? So there aren't a double entry system in here so that for BlackBird to pick between the best of the two price points, right? So you have to stick with one, and then So once we pick a price point, then we can go into the trailing actions and allow the trailing actions to choose between two different price points and move the stop loss to the closer one, right? So, the question was, again, let's recap this, right? The question was, set the stop loss at 4 ATRs, which, a 4 ATR is always a safe price point to calculate, right? So a 4 ATR stop loss is always guaranteed to go in or to be accepted by the exchange, right? So the other option is this pivot point or a swing point, right? So if it was a long trade, right, it would be the swing low. So for example, here on this chart, this looks like this would be the swing low right here. Let's see. So stop loss, profit target. Oh, okay. Actually, this example here would be for a short trade. So yeah. So here we go. So the swing high would be up here for the stop loss, right? Or so if our entry was right here, that would be the swing high for the stop loss, or 4 ATRs. So the problem when you're using an indicator to set your stop loss is that, what if price was above this high point? What if price was making a new high when you went into a short trade? Well, this swing high would be an invalid price for your stop loss, right? Because the market's above, right? So you went short above the swing high. So that would be invalid. So when you're choosing between, something like a tick-based offset or an ATR-based offset, those are always guaranteed to work out. But if you're using, when you want to use an indicator, right? So the nearest pivot point, that's going to be calculated by some kind of swing point indicator, right? So this being an indicator, there's always the risk, that where you get into the trade might be on the wrong, your indicator might be on the wrong side of the market. So, so if the market was way up above and we went short, right, you can't put a stop loss below the market for a short trade. So that wouldn't work out, right? So basically, we don't have a choice here. We have to go with the 4 ATR as our initial placement price point for the stop loss. And then BlackBird can look at the swing indicator and see, is the swing indicator, at a valid, on the right side of the market, is the swing indicator giving us a valid price point for the stop loss? And if it is, then is it closer, to the market than where the 4 ATR stop loss is? Right. So let's go and set that all up here. All right. So for the initial placement, we will set up a 4 ATR stop loss. All right, so select ATR, and I'll just leave the period at 14, I guess. And then we'll set the multiplier at -4. All right, so there we go. So the initial placement is calculated by taking the entry price, and then we multiply, or we calculate what is a 4 ATR, and since it's a negative, right, it'd be subtracted. The 4 ATR would be subtracted from the entry price, right? At least for a long trade here. And then if it was a short trade, it would be the opposite, right? It'd be a positive 4 ATR, so that would be added to the entry price. Okay, so that way the stop loss would be above. Right. So, and obviously, since our anchor price is the entry, and then we're adding an offset to the entry. So this is always guaranteed to calculate a valid stop loss price. Okay, so now we can switch over to the trailing actions, and I already set the mode to custom, and so now we can add a trailing roll here, and we can look. Let's see. What should I call this? There we go. I'll just call it the swing high low. Right. And so let's go into the action here, and go into the move to, and we're going to set this menu up, to look at the swing highs and lows indicator that I have on my chart here, right? So we're going to change the mode to indicator value, and then and now we can bring up the list of indicators. So let's open up the chart folder, and there's the swing highs and lows indicator, and I'm just using the default settings here of number of swings 4, swing strength 7. So now we need to pick the plots. What plots do we want to use? And so the widest plots, right? We have widest tops, widest bottoms. So the widest plots are the green and red that we see on the chart, right? So I set the tightest plots to invisible. So if we're executing a long trade, then we'd want to set our stop loss to the widest bottoms, right? So that's going to be the red line. Think of that as the lowest low, right, or the swing low point. And the widest tops would be the swing high points, so the green lines. And so we'd use the swing highs for a short trade. So we'll check that right there. So, all right, and that basically there we have it. So the stop loss is initially going to go in at 4 ATRs, but if the swing higher low is closer, then BlackBird will move that stop loss to the swing higher low if it's closer. So, but also keep in mind that because this is a trailing action, this is a trailing roll. So when the stop loss initially goes in, let's see here. So let's say we went short right around here, right? Well, it looks like we might have a swing high developing right there. So yeah, there we go. Good enough. Right, so it looks like we might have a swing high developing here. So, our stop loss, let's see, if we got in right there, 4 ATRs is probably right about here. All right, so that would be our approximate stop loss. There, we'll make that red. There we go. All right, that's our approximate stop loss. So, yeah, shoot, I was really hoping that this would turn into a swing high right there. So we'll just have to, pretend that this did turn into a swing high. So when we, went short here, and our stop loss is up here at 4 ATRs, right? Because the swing high is up here. But if a lower swing high develops, so let's say maybe this turns into a swing high. So what's going to happen is eventually our stop loss will move down to this swing high once the indicator, identifies this as a swing high point, right? So our stop loss is not permanently fixed. That's the point I'm trying to illustrate, is that the stop loss, when it goes into the initial price, right? So that stop loss, gets placed at the initial placement, which is 4 ATRs, and then BlackBird will take a look at this trailing roll, and it'll evaluate, where the price point is for the swing high, and BlackBird's going to go, well, the swing high is further away, and BlackBird's not going to move a stop loss backwards, right? BlackBird's only going to move a stop loss closer. So it's evaluating this trailing roll here. It's evaluating it always. And so if the swing high does move down, then at some point, right, the swing high is closer to where the market's trading. And so this trailing roll is going to execute at least once, right? So if we look at the repeat, it says no repeat, but this trailing roll is trying to execute at least one time, right? So that's why if the swing high does move down, our stop loss will move down at least once. So, since the repeat is set to none, then that means this trailing roll can execute, it will execute at least once, or it has the ability to execute once. And of course, that's only if the swing highs move further down. So, surprisingly, we don't actually have a swing high moving down yet, but that's what would happen. So, now, if we, for some reason, wanted to ensure that our stop loss never moves, then what we could do is we can go into the repeat, and let's see here, repeat until, there we go. We'll use the repeat until option here, and then open up the repeat until, and this will provide us a list of all the trigger conditions here. And I'm going to use the delay here, and then we're going to open up the delays, and we're going to add, let's see here, we want to add, we want bars, there we go. So let's set that to 1 bar. So what I did is I created a 1 bar counter, basically. Let's see, in the mode it says after first delay. So what I just created, we can read this, is now this trailing roll now is restricted. It can only repeat until 1 bar. So now this trailing roll has a limited lifespan, right? So once the entry order executes and our stop loss goes in, right, the stop loss will get placed at our initial placement, right? So whatever the 4 ATR, price point calculates out to, and then BlackBird's going to evaluate all the trailing rolls here, and it's going to evaluate the swing high and low to see if the swing high would be closer, and if it is, it'll move that stop loss right away, right after the stop loss was placed. BlackBird will try and execute this trailing roll, and but then eventually it's going to see that, it has a, it's going to check the repeat here, and it'll calculate, or it'll figure out that, this trailing roll is only valid for 1 bar, and then after that, this trailing roll is basically dead, right? It's disabled after 1 bar there. So let's see here. Let's give this a test spin, and I think we can actually test this right now. Let's see. Let's go long, and let's see what happens here. That was so quick. You guys probably couldn't see it through the webinar, but I saw the stop loss go in down below, and then it looked like it tried to jump up to the swing high here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, shoot. That's right. Darn it. Yeah, I am. That's right. So I should have realized this. Yeah, so as some of you probably know, NinjaTrader Release 26, they changed the back end, and that has caused an error with the swing trend indicator, and the swing highs and lows is built on the back of the swing trend indicator, so the swing highs and lows also has an issue now too. And I did not update my shark indicators. Yeah, we do have a patch out for this issue, but I don't have it installed. Let's see here. Let's see if I go to shark indicators, go to licensing manager. Yeah, you can see I'm on version 8.1.16.47, and I think the beta version that we have out is 49, which fixes the swing indicator for NinjaTrader Release 26. So there's a good chance that I'm not going to be able to test this. Let's see. Let's get BlackBird up and running again. And let's try this one more time. So, yeah, so here's a great example. All right, right now, I can't take a long trade because the swing high, well, if I tried to place my stop loss on the swing low, while the market's below it, right, that would be an invalid price for a stop loss, if I was taking a long trade. So I just need to wait for the market to move up above the swing low here. So, well, actually, let's okay. So, what BlackBird just did is it tried to move the stop loss up to the swing low, but that was an invalid price. So actually, we do need to make one modification here. So I'm going to make one modification to this trailing roll here, and I'm going to add a trigger that's going to validate that the market is on the correct side of the market of the swing point. So I'm going to use a price versus indicator trigger here. And so let's make sure that the closing price of the bar is above the swing indicator. And I'm actually now using the swing indicator twice, so this might double the chances of this error occurring with NinjaTrader 26, but this would be the right way to do it. Let's see here. So for a long trade, I want the widest bottoms. For a short trade, I want the widest tops. There we go. Right, so we're comparing the close of the bar to the swing highs and lows indicator. And so if I'm in a long trade, I want the close, right? I want the closing price to be above B, and B is the swing indicator, right? So actually not equals. Let's make sure that, yeah, let's make sure that the market is above it. And so for short, we'd want A below B. And so what if the closing price of the bar is one tick above, the swing highs, or the swing low? What if price is one tick, like right here? What if price, right? Oh, that's a great example. So the close of that bar literally closed one tick above, the swing low. Well, that's probably too close, to be moving your stop loss up to that swing low when the market is literally one tick away, right? So you might want some kind of separation there. So what we could do is we could take either, input A or input B, and we can add an offset. So let's take the swing, we're going to take the swing low and then add a 10 tick offset to it. All right, we'll add a 10 tick offset to it. So now the close has to be above the swing low plus that 10 ticks, right? And if it was a short trade, then it would be the swing high minus 10 ticks. So for a short trade, the close would have to be 10 ticks below the swing high there, right? So that's how we can add a buffer, between the close of the bar and the indicator, right? You can add a buffer by either just, picking a fixed number of ticks, or of course you could set up, the ATR, you could use the ATR to set up a buffer if you wanted to as well. So, and actually let's cancel that. There we go. So, okay. So now I have a trigger here that's going to validate that the closing price, right, is on the correct side of the indicator before trying to move the stop loss there. Okay, so let's give this a try again. And where's our swing low? There's our swing low. All right. So hopefully the market will come down a little closer. Yeah, I figured, right. So right now, 4 ATRs is above the swing low there. So that's, I need the market to come down a little bit more. If this takes too long, I'll have to switch over to the simulated data feed. Oh, there we go. We're getting, shoot, I just missed my opportunity. Oh, there we go. Okay. There. Hopefully you guys saw that. I mean, that happens real quick, but the stop loss started off a couple of ticks below, and then it moved right up to the swing low, within a split second. So I'll see if I can do that one more time here. So if the market, oh, come on, market, go down. There we go. Oh, no, that was right on it. All right, so maybe I'll try and take a short trade here. There you go. Hopefully you guys saw that. The stop loss started up here and then boom, moved down to that swing low. And let's see here. Oh, come on. And of course the market is perfectly nestled between the swing highs and low points. Come on, this is uncharacteristic for the NQ. There we go. There. All right, so there we saw it again. I'll do this one more time. Right, so you can see the stop loss jumps up there. So now let's go short. Boom. All right, and with any luck, the swing highs. Yeah, actually, I need this. I would need the swing highs to jump. I need the swing. If we get lucky, the swing highs might move down, and we can see the stop loss moving down to the new swing high. Although the market's gonna pick it off. Yeah. All right, let's go there. Hey, there we go. Looks like we're going to get a swing high developing right there. And, oh, there it is. Okay, so the swing high did move lower, but you notice how our stop loss didn't move, and that's because of that repeat rule here. Right, so it didn't actually move down. And again, to illustrate, right, that's because our repeat, I used the repeat until there, and I gave it only a 1 bar opportunity, right? And obviously this swing low moved down, you know, several bars after getting into the trade there. So that's how you could restrict it. But probably, my guess is most people would probably want to tighten up their stop loss to the swing low. So I can set it back to no repeat. And so now, let's see. Yeah, let's go short. All right, and if the market will work with us, yeah, it looks like we're going to get a swing high developing up here somewhere. All right, let's try this again. There we go. All right, yeah, if we can get a couple more down bars, we'll get a swing high up here. Bingo, there you go. Our swing high just developed right there. And so we can see our stop loss move down, right? But it can only move to that swing high or swing low point once. And then that stop loss is not going to move anymore after that point, right? So, yeah. So that's how we can get BlackBird to decide between 2 price points for your stop loss, right? Or your profit target, you know, or even your entry price, right? Yeah, so again, just to summarize here, you have to pick something, you know, 1 price point for your initial placement. And then you can use the trailing actions and create a trailing rule that will look at the other price point, and then BlackBird will decide, you know, if the secondary price point is closer, then it'll move your stop loss to that closer point, right? And so keep in mind that the evaluate using is what determines whether BlackBird will move the stop loss closer to the market or further away. So it's this evaluate using, right? So the default, you know, behavior for a stop loss is you always, you know, you move a stop loss closer and closer to the market price, right? So the action closest to price is the default, you know, behavior for stop losses, right? So this evaluate using is, you know, since the action is set to closest to price, then what that means is BlackBird is going to look at, you know, where the stop loss currently is at, which is at this 4 ATR price, and then BlackBird's going to evaluate this trailing rule, right? It's going to calculate the price point from the action, right? And the action is saying, look at the price point of the swing indicator, and then BlackBird says, okay, I'm supposed to evaluate this by picking whichever price point is closest to the market. So so if the stop loss, if the current stop loss price is closer to the market than the swing indicator, then nothing happens. But as soon as the swing indicator moves closer to where the market's trading, then the swing indicator is closer, and so BlackBird's going to say, okay, yeah, well, I'm supposed to, my directive, is to keep moving that stop loss closer to the market. So, right. Okay, I think that does it for this question. Let's see. Oh, okay. So Dean says his question was for a profit target, not a stop loss. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, same. Yeah, so everything, same concept applies there. So, let's see here. Yeah, so I guess I'll leave this stop loss in there. And so let's set this up for a profit target. So, all right. So I'm going to pick the ATR. I'm going to use the 2 ATR to set up my profit target there. And then on the options tab, I'm going to go into the initial placement, and I'm going to bump this up to 4 ATRs, like so. There we go. And then in the trailing actions, we're going to turn the trailing actions on there. And let's create a trailing roll. All right, there. And the action is we want to move that profit target to the swing highs and lows indicator. And let's see, yeah, there we go. We already have the swing highs and lows already set up for us since we used it previously for the stop loss. Right, BlackBird remembered that and sets it up for you automatically to try and save some time. But this time, if we're on a long trade, since this is a profit target, we'd want to use the widest tops for a long trade and the widest bottoms for a short trade, right? So we'd want our profit target at the widest tops for a long trade, right? So the swing highs. So there. All right. And again, the evaluate is set to closest to price. Right. Now, if you wanted to pick the wider, or if you wanted to pick the furthest profit target, so if you wanted, so if you wanted to pick between a 4 ATR and the swing high, and whichever one was furthest away, then we could have changed the evaluate to furthest from price. So now the profit target would be pushed out to whichever price point was further away from where the market's at. Right? So that way you'd have a larger profit target. So, but Dean actually wanted the profit target to be closest to where the market's at. So we'll leave the evaluate to closest to price there. And so, once again, if the swing, so for a long trade, if the swing high moves a little closer, that profit target would move in closer, if the repeat is just left where it's at. If we only want this evaluation, right, between the 4 ATR, versus, let's see, so for short trade, there you go. So if we only wanted the evaluation of a 4 ATR, or so this would be for short trade. So for ATR or the swing low. If we only wanted this evaluation, selecting between the two, when the position is first opened, right, or when the profit target is first placed, if we only want this evaluation at that moment, as I kind of explained with the stop loss, we'd have to go in and set up this repeat here to repeat until, use the repeat until, and then we'd have to set this all up here. So you go and use the delay, and with the delay, we're going to add a 1 bar delay there. There we go. So with the repeat on set to repeat until 1 bar, basically limits this trailing rule to only be evaluated on that bar that the profit target is placed on. Right. So there. Okay, so let's test this out now. Let's see. All right, cool. We're in the middle here. So let's go along and see what happens. Boom. Look at that. That was quick, but both the profit target and the stop loss moved in. They both moved in together. Let's do this again. And so now that the swing high is less than where the market's at, right? Basically, that profit target moves down. So once again, just as we did with the stop loss, right? We use this trigger to make sure that the closing price of the market, is on the right side of the market as compared to the swing point indicator. So we need to do the same thing for our profit target. All right, so let's go into the trigger, and we're going to use the price versus indicator, and we'll see where the closing price is, and let's set up the indicator here. So let's go and select the swing highs and lows indicator, and let's see once again. So for a long trade, we want the widest tops, so the green line for a long trade, and the widest bottoms for a short trade. Oh, and we should put in the offset here. So actually, wait, this is a profit target. Well, yeah, this is subjective, but maybe you might want to make sure that there's at least again, I guess I'll just put a 10 tick difference there. So this time, I'm using minus 10 ticks. So I'm taking the swing high and subtracting 10 ticks, right? So we take the swing high and then subtract 10 ticks down, and so the close would need to be below, or the close, needs to be below the swing indicator. So for a long trade, A needs to be below B, and so for a short trade, it'd be the opposite, A above B, right? So the close, right, the close of the bar needs to be below the swing high minus 10 ticks. Yeah. So as long as price is 10 ticks below, right, the closing price is 10 ticks below the swing high, then our profit target would move down to the swing high. So, right. And of course, this is all, subjective. Maybe you don't, maybe you don't care how close the closing price is to the swing high. Maybe if it's only a few ticks away, that's fine. But you at least want to do this comparison to make sure that the swing high is actually above, right, the market there before moving the profit target to a swing high that would actually be below the market. So, all right, so let's try this out one more time. And let's see here. Shall we go? Let's go long. And, oh, actually, interesting. Yeah, our profit target actually moved up. Hold on. Let me double check the trailing rolls here. Action closest to price. Well, let's try furthest from price. Maybe those labels might be backwards for the profit target. All right, let's try this again. Well, it appears that I've discovered a little bug. Yeah, so the evaluate using is not. Let me just. Yeah, I'm just double checking all my work. Make sure I didn't set something incorrectly. Yeah, move to swing high and low. That's right. Yeah, let's try this again. All right, let's go long. Yeah, well, apparently there's a little bug in the trailing rolls for profit targets. Yeah, it's ignoring so the profit target trailing rolls is ignoring the evaluate. So, but that's how it's supposed to work. So we'll have to get that fixed there. Yeah, that will have to be repaired. But this is how you would set that up. So, so with the evaluate set to closest to price, then that tells BlackBird to, either keep the profit target at the 4 ATR if that is closer to the market than where the swing high and low is. Let's see. So this is a fairly commonly requested kind of setup here for BlackBird. So let's see. I will actually save this out. So also, yeah, let me just remind you here. So we'll take a look at the stop loss here, right? So right now I'm saving it with the repeat set to none, but if you go in and you change this, if I set it to repeat until, it remembers the settings that I have in there. All right, so you can see it goes back to the repeat until 1 bar. Right. So yeah, so whatever settings, so if you go, yeah, I should say this another way. So if you go in, and set up any of these repeats, BlackBird's going to remember the settings here. So like if I go into the repeat X times, and I set it to 7, right? So I have repeat, 7 times, and then I can go and set it to no repeat, and then I can close this out, and then I can open it back up, open up my stop loss, go into the repeat, and then set the repeat to X times, and you can see it remembers that I set the repeat to 7. So your settings always get remembered. That's just how software works. So whenever you set something up, it always gets remembered, even if you switch to a different mode. It's always going to be remembered. So like if I switch it back to the repeat until option, right? Again, it remembers the 1 bar setting that I put in there previously. So you can always go back and restore those other repeats, and it'll be there for you. So all right, so now let me save this out. Okay, so I think that's a fairly good name here as a reminder. So the profit target, is initially set at a 4 ATR, and there's a trailing roll, so that it would be monitored at 4 ATR or the swing high, if it's a long trade, or the swing low if it's a short trade. And the same thing with the stop loss, right? The stop loss starts, the initial placement is a 4 ATR, and then the trailing roll, we'll move it to either the swing low for a long trade or the swing high for a short trade.